So hi everyone, thank you so much for joining today's webinar series, The Power of Social Media. So welcome again to the Sparks Talks webinar series, and it's all part of the Light of Spark campaign brought to you by the Girls Action Foundation. My name is Elvira Trulia, and I'm the engagement coordinator for the Light of Spark campaign. In a couple of minutes, I'm going to be passing things over to Dorothy Engelman, who will be talking about the power of social media today. And I'm very happy that Dorothy agreed to join us. But before passing things on to her and her presentation, I wanted to just briefly introduce you to the Girls Action Foundation, because I know that some of you may not be familiar with our work. For those who are, I thank you in advance for your patience. So the Girls Action Foundation is a nonprofit organization, and our mission or our work is to empower girls across Canada. We're based in Montreal, where we run local girls programs, and we work with about 240 partners nationwide who run local programs in their communities. And some of the initiatives that we do, some of the things we do include leadership training. We organize networking events and other kinds of gatherings and initiatives to connect girls and young women. And in terms of impact, as is indicated on this screen, we reach about 60,000 girls and young women across Canada, and they're located in remote, marginalized, and urban communities across the country, including in the north. So as mentioned at the very top, this webinar series is presented as part of the Light of Spark campaign, and it's a national campaign that was launched on March 8th, and the goal of the campaign is to build a movement to really inspire girls and young women to achieve their potential. And we're doing this by showcasing groundbreaking women of all ages from regions across Canada. And these role models, or what we call Sparks, have all accepted to get involved in the campaign in different ways, including presenting webinars like the one that we'll be beginning with in a couple of minutes today. So just before introducing Dorothy, I thought it would be useful to go over what to expect from today's webinar. So you should see on your screen a number of different information displays and slides that will be changing throughout the presentation. You should also see a box on the right-hand side of your screen called Chat. This is where you can ask questions and interact with Dorothy, myself, and as well as other participants. So if you have a question or comment during the presentation, please type it into the chat box and hit enter. And by doing this, your question will be recorded, and by default, it will be visible to everyone participating in the webinar. So if you prefer to submit a question privately, what you can do is hit the right arrow key on the bottom of the chat box, and next to the word all participants, you can select my name, Elvira Trulia, and the question will come only to me. So after Dorothy has spoken and made her presentation, we'll be opening up the question and answer session. And as the moderator, I'll be keeping track of everything that has been asked in the chat box and direct those questions to Dorothy during the Q&A session. On a last technical note, I wanted to let you know that today's session is being recorded, as well as the question and answer period, and it will be posted online in the next couple of days, and I'm going to be sending everyone a link to the recording. And I also wanted to let you know that that you should be able to see Dorothy on the video panel, which is located on the right-hand side of your screen. If you can't see her, what you have to do is click on the right arrow on the top right-hand side of your screen and select Video Panel. With that, you should see a little window where Dorothy's image will appear, and if you don't see her image, you click on the arrow again, and beside the arrow is her name, Dorothy Engelman. So here she is. She's she's kind of doing a hand.
Doing a wave.
Doing a wave. There she is. There's Dorothy. So just a couple of minutes more before I pass things over to Dorothy, because I wanted to have a chance to introduce her. So Dorothy Engelman has been producing content for television for 25 years. Her animation and documentary television programs have aired on CBC, on CTV, as well as TVO. She is the co-owner and senior partner at Q Media Solutions, creating content for the private media, health, and nonprofit sectors. Dorothy's work for the private and nonprofit sector led to the development of Get Involved, a primetime TVO series that features activists, innovators, and social entrepreneurs. She led the development of a companion website, getinvolved.ca, that matches social change organizations and individuals who want to make a difference. Dorothy has also created Digital You, a TV series and iTunes podcast series exploring social media for social change. And you probably hear a lot of noise in the background. I apologize for that. I'm not sure what it is. On a last note, before introducing Dorothy, in December 2010, she was selected one of the 100 most powerful women in Canada. She's also a speaker on philanthropy, corporate social responsibility, and social media. I'd like to introduce you now to Dorothy, but right before doing so, I'm going to open a poll. And we wanted to have an idea of who actually is in the virtual room. So I'm opening the poll now, and you should see questions appearing on your screen. And if you could please just take a couple of minutes to answer those questions. And I'm going to pass things over to Dorothy now, and while she introduces herself, gives you a little bit more information. I'll be keeping track of the questions, and once the poll is closed, I'm going to post them on the screen so we can all see the results. So please do take a minute of your time to fill out the questions. And passing things over to you, Dorothy. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I'm very excited to be talking to you. What I'd like to do is I have a presentation, but I have some expertise in both the not-for-profit space in terms of social media, both through the volunteer work that I do with Wellspring Cancer Supportive Services. I also work doing some other volunteer work with a bunch of other organizations like the Y and Boys and Girls Club and Youth Without Shelter, organizations that I give my time pro bono to. But I also have a lot of corporate experience doing social media work. I work with CTV and Bell Globe Media and large corporations doing integrated content. So once we get the results of the poll, what I'm going to do is I would like to start off with a video and from my Digital Use series. It runs about 2.5 minutes, and we're going to, in a few minutes, give you a link to that where you'll be able to watch it on your own computers. And what it'll do is it'll just kind of set the stage a little bit for the category, whether we're going to talk a little bit more about the private sector or the not-for-profit sector. Regardless, I'll try to reference both communities, but maybe just customize my content a little bit more based on what the results of the poll are. So the most important poll question is, number one, and the other questions will help me as I go forward, just in terms of understanding who I've got, on the other end of the phone here, and that'll be helpful to me in terms of customizing my answers. So I think the poll has ended, so we'll just look and see if I think we're going to get the results in a few minutes. Once I get those results, as I said, I'm going to choose one of the two pieces. Just in terms of how I ended up here, how did I end up learning about social media? I'm going to say that I'm still a rookie because the whole space is still very new. I've been working in the space about 5 or 6 years, but for me, having worked, it's actually 30 years now in broadcasting, it's kind of scary. I always feel like I need to know a lot more about things. And social media space is changing so quickly that it's really important for all of us to be aware of new trends that are happening, and they're happening every 5 minutes. So when I produced this series, I'm going to show you one of the videos from, it was almost 18 months ago, and since then, social media has changed the face of North Africa. It's elected a president. All kinds of exciting things have happened, and so we've been able to see firsthand the power of social media. There were a lot of media people who decried the advent of social media and said that it was not a good thing, and they couldn't see any relevance for social media. But I think that social media is, it's like who we are. We are social, and media and technology are such a big part of our lives. So I'm just going to look here. So it looks like private sector, 13%, not-for-profit, 60%. Well, there you go. We have a fairly clear idea, I think, about what and who we have in the room. So I think we'll look at the online activism video. I'm just going to look down here a little bit further to see the rest of the answers of the questions. So it seems like most of you have used social media in your personal life, and Facebook is a big place of interest, it looks like, and Twitter. So we'll focus on Twitter and Facebook because I do think those are two of the sort of the most powerful examples. But I think blogging is also another big piece that I'll talk about. So let's go back to our main page. Are you going to? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to pass it on to you, Dorothy. So
okay,
we want
thank you.
to show you the results. Interesting.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you so much for that.
Over 30 is our audience today.
Perfect.
Is mostly people over 30.
Great. Well, that's pretty representative too of the people that are interested in the digital media space. As I'll show you after we go through some of the look at some of the results on the stats on what's happening in social media currently. We'll take you through that. So here's where we are. This is the video, and all you have to do is just take your cursor and put it over the video. And since we're all going to be doing this at the same time, I'm going to hit play as well. And you should be able to hear the volume off your computer or headphones, however you're listening to this. So I'd suggest everyone hits play. Let's watch this, and then I'll move on from there. Thanks.
I also want to make a note, if you are having any technical difficulties, please send me questions about that via the chat box. Just send them privately to me, and I could also help you troubleshoot.
So we'll be back in about 3 minutes.
If you're having problems viewing the video, please do send me a chat message. I'm going to assume that everybody's pretty much done the video. I played it, so I'm assuming we're all running in the same time zone. Now I'm going to just go through the power of social media. So I think that the video very clearly sets out this idea that there's a huge movement going on. And for me, social media is a very powerful tool. It's not about posting your photographs on Facebook and, sharing your baby photos. That's a very important piece of the social way that we use social media. But for me, I'm very excited about the power of social media to make change. That's my particular interest, and it seems like, at least from the audience, that we can talk a little bit about that. So some of the themes are that it's a collaborative tool, that it's a way to crowdsource, it's a way to have a conversation with your audience,
and it's happening in big ways now. It's happening in ways that we couldn't imagine. So here's just a look at why social media matters now. So 4 of the top 10 sites visited in Canada are now social media sites. Excuse me. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Wikipedia. Canadians spend about 17 hours a week online, and Canadians are among some of the largest users of the Internet in the world, and in fact, social media gurus, really, when it comes to it. Of that, we also have some split outs on what percentage and what age groups we're looking at, but I'm going to get into that a little bit in the next slide. So the biggest thing that we know why social media is now important is it's more important than porn on the web. And porn on the web was the thing that was running everything. So we now know that social media is now the #1 activity. So the facts that sort of back this up is, and some of these are American stats, but 1 out of 8 couples now in the United States have been met via social media. 60% of Canadians are on at least one social networking site. And I would say that those sites, the way it looks in terms of percentages, it's Facebook, then it's LinkedIn in the professional kind of world, and then Twitter is a tool that's used mostly by people who are trying to do a lot of marketing. The largest group, though, that is uptaking in social media are people over the age of 55, which is very significant for people in the not-for-profit sector because we have 2 things going on there. One, a big talent pool for volunteers, often people over the age of 45 now. We have this huge boom population. Some of the research suggests that, these are people that are going to be the biggest volunteers that we have, and the biggest volunteers we had in the past were people over the age of 65, and those people are retiring from volunteering at this point. So I think some of the other things sort of show the prevalence of social media are examples on how long it took for you to get a certain number of users to use your technology. So in the case of radio, it took 38 years. TV, it took 13 years to get to 50 million users. It's taken the iPod 3 years to get to 50 million users. And we're, accelerating with every single new piece of technology that we're using. The other thing is, I think that when you look at iPhone and mobile applications, these are some of the things that you have to think about when you're thinking about social media and what type of social media you choose to use based on what demographic you're trying to reach. If you're trying to reach a group that's under the age of 25, I'd highly recommend that you get very, very conversant with Twitter and that you understand that a lot of people are accessing Twitter through their smartphones. So these are just some numbers. I'm sure you can share these. These are numbers that you can use to sort of make a statement of proof when you perhaps need to make an investment in social media within your organization or you're looking for volunteers to help. These are just some stats that show the power of it. And the biggest piece here is really about trust. So I'd get you to look at this piece. Around 78% of consumers trust peer recommendations, but only 14% trust advertising. So the power of social media is if my friend likes it, I pay attention. And those trusted recommendations aggregate and are controlled within these social media environments like Facebook, like Twitter. So if George is following Susie, and I'm a friend of Susie, I'm likely to follow George and everything that George is doing. And if George liked an organization that he did some volunteering for, I'm more likely to look at that organization than if I saw a flyer or an ad or a billboard. So this is really significant because this means that for not-for-profit organizations, social media can be, I don't want to say absolutely, but can be a very powerful tool and a very effective, efficient tool to use to be able to outreach to organizations, to be able to fundraise, to be able to communicate with your constituents and your stakeholders. So I think that's really the power of social media. Now, people that are in communications or work with not-for-profits, any of us, some of us, and I'm going to say myself included, can feel a little overwhelmed or intimidated by social media because it's technology-based. But the reality is that when you're communicating in this space, whether you're talking on an iPhone or through a film or an advertisement or through research or through a game or through email, you're using the same tools of communication that we've always used. Storytelling. Storytelling is kind of at the basis of all of this. So I think to a certain degree you have to understand that each different type of social media requires a different type of story to be told. but still, don't feel overwhelmed by it. The reality is, if you were a good communicator in the old technology, you're a good communicator in the new technology. And I think it's a really good idea to work with young people that are conversant with the tools and use them as people that can help to mentor you, not so much in how, but in the sort of the different ways that these social media tools can be used. So that's what I'm going to get on to next. The other thing is there's a lot of new things, and you can get caught up in thinking you're behind the curve and not knowing what's going on. I think there's some essential things that you need to know. So this is why I'm going to just talk about the different types of social media. And I think it's important to understand that you use different types of social media for different types of activities. So really the big pieces of social media are social networking, blogging, news and information sharing, and multimedia sharing. Now, depending on your organization, your assets, the things that you have, either personally or as an organization, that you want to share. Say you have a lot of research, then I think there's two great ways to share that research. You do that through blogging and have all kinds of links to your blog through Twitter and through Facebook, but it's good to establish blogging as a way to communicate. If you have a large audience that you want to keep in touch with throughout the course of a day, and you've got lots of activities or events throughout the course of a week, Facebook and Twitter are great tools to do that. But if you don't have any depth of content to share, those are probably the best two places. LinkedIn is becoming an increasingly important place for organizations. I think it's important to get used to LinkedIn, to try to test out LinkedIn as a person, and then join some groups. It's a fantastic, fantastic resource for finding forums, especially in the not-for-profit sector around social media. I belong to 3 different groups. If any of you want to share your content with me on LinkedIn or invite me to be linked to you, I invite you to do that. I'm on LinkedIn, and I can share with you some of the chats and the groups that I'm involved with. There's some fantastic people who are sharing best practices in the not-for-profit space, especially on LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is a great tool for that. Obviously, if you have an asset or a lot of information that your organization wants to communicate, make sure you check Wikipedia to make sure that the content is up to date, and you should update your content and make sure that your content is up to date. Just for basic news content, Huffington Post and Newsvine are some of the big places where people go to share information through their news feed. There's all kinds of social media links from these blogging sort of superpowers. And so the sharing of content from those two sources is probably the highest density that we see on the Internet. Multimedia sharing, I'm not sure how important that is to your organizations, but sharing photographs of an event can be posting them on Flickr, linking them through Twitter or through Facebook can be a very powerful tool. Vimeo is an organization that is a kind of a parallel YouTube environment that's really great for the not-for-profit space. If you're a not-for-profit, they have free video streaming. They have very high-quality sort of interface, which allows you to put your videos up in a really nice environment. There's lots of not-for-profits that are in the Vimeo space as opposed to YouTube, which is a little bit more entertainment-driven and a bit more music-driven. And then there's some other ones you can check out, Justin TV and Livestream or other types of social media. So after you think about what types of social media are out there, you have to make sure that you use them for the right thing. Now, I sort of went over in a big way how I see each of the pieces, but here I've just broken it down into, what you can use it for. I think one of the most powerful tools in terms of Twitter is an emerging technology that I think is going to really change the game. Right now everyone's on Facebook, and I totally see the value of it, but there's some interfaces for Twitter that almost they almost become like a news feed that you can get from various sources, and it's starting to change now that there's these new pad technologies like the iPad and BlackBerry Pad Playbook. YouTube is always a great place to put up your videos. I would recommend that all of you create a channel of your own content on YouTube and put your content there because it's easily shared and people pass it around. If you're someone, either an organization or an individual, who wants to be seen as an expert in the space, in whatever space you're in, I highly recommend you put together a blog. Now, in all of these cases, what are some of the considerations you have to think about when you've made a decision to go into social media? I think you have to think about, do you have the resources? Because once you go in the social media space, you have to make sure you're responsive. That's a key point. If you can't be responsive, you're going to lose your audience. So it's good to have a strategy. There's a lot of different ways to use social media. You can use it to bring people together. You can use it to build awareness. You can use it to promote your organization. You can use it to build relationships. And one of the biggest ways that are sort of starting to emerge in the not-for-profit area is to use it for fundraising. So, again, it may not be the biggest way that you might be able to raise money right now, but over time it does create long-term relationships. And we know that traditional fundraising has done that as well through whether it's direct mail or other, phone or in-person, door-to-door type fundraising. So these are just some stats, and you can see it's growing. It's becoming a huge trend online. And it's also being used by individuals who care about particular causes. So there's all kinds of fundraising sites now that are out there, and there's a lot of tools that are free. So I'd get you to take a look at that. So what I've done here at the very end is I've got some not-for-profit case studies that I've gotten some links to. You can take a look at those, some very good ideas. And then some blogs that are out there on social media and some videos to social media that give you a very good sense of what's going on. There's three things that I want to particularly draw your attention to. The ones on the right-hand side of the page, Mitch Joel, Seth Godin, and Beth Cantor, are, for my money, the most interesting people talking about social media. They're clever, they're bright, they're insightful, and they all care about the sort of the tools to make change. Mitch Joel is probably the most commercial of them all, but Seth and Beth are very much in the not-for-profit space. The other piece that I would suggest you take a look at is there's a piece called The Social Media Revolution, Facts on Digital Media. That's a really fun video, and a lot of the facts that I have in the front of my the front of my pack come from that video, which are all sourced pieces of content about the power of social media. It's a great, fun YouTube video to watch, and it can be very, very helpful. So the last thing I was going to do is I was going to share a little bit on Get Involved, which is the site that I am currently working on, and I wanted to show you because it's my way of using social media. And Get Involved is a place where we link organizations and individuals through a matching tool. I'm just going to go to the home page here for a second. So, first of all, if you are a not-for-profit, I urge you to join, to contact me or one of my community managers. We are here to help organizations. We're a free service. We want to promote and help build capacity for the not-for-profit sector. Right now we're helping Luminato get word out since it's coming up in the next couple of weeks. We have videos that can help you learn more about social media. We have all kinds of videos about individuals that are making a difference. But the most important tool we have, two tools that we have, are our matching tool. And our matching tool allows individuals to find volunteer opportunities based on their interests. They select their interests, they select their skills, and they type in their postal code, and they then click the big green button, Get Matched. And when they do that, they're going to be matched to over 1,500 organizations from across the country who've posted their opportunities. This is one piece. If you're looking to promote your opportunities, these are the matches that would come up for me, 241 results. Now, what we have on our site are virtual results, which are these marked with a V, and you're seeing a lot of virtual volunteering going on. So you can get volunteers to work for you from across the country if you need researchers or writers or all kinds of things, and it's a very exciting tool. I don't want to spend too much time on Get Involved, but I want to say that if you're looking for volunteers, you can use our matching tool in the same way. We have over 1,500 skilled volunteers that are offering their time and their expertise. We've had some amazing stories and some amazing matches. And if you're interested in blogging, we have a blog where we've partnered with about 50 not-for-profit organizations, always looking to share content, and these are different ways that we can do that. So I'm going to just wrap up. My time now, I think, is over for my presentation, and I'm going to pass it back to Women's Girls Action Foundation.
Do you want to stop the? Okay.
Stop sharing. I'm sorry. My apologies. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Dorothy. That was a great, really great overview of what's out there. And I think one of the things that, and I put myself in that category, and I think a lot of people are in that category. There's so much out there. It seems overwhelming, and social media is sort of a new thing, the new tool that people are talking about. But I mean, thinking about it as a tool. Based on your experience, can you identify maybe some of the good ways and bad ways of using that tool? Because as you said at the very beginning, it's not necessarily just about sort of, well, I've got this new tool and I'm gonna use it to post all the photos I have in my life and share it with everyone.
Good and bad ways. It's I guess I'm going to say the important thing, the considerations that you have to think about. The thing that you don't want to do is you don't want to jump in with a lot of content and start working in the social media space on multiple platforms and not be prepared for the amount of work that it takes to maintain it and the amount of work it takes to kind of keep it up to date. And increasingly, in my organization, I have someone that I've hired to only deal with my social media for both Get Involved and my company. Not myself. I'm trying to do it myself for me. But I think you can find volunteers to do that. You can find young people to do that. But before you get started in the social media space, I think you need to identify why are you there? What are you looking to do? And if you're looking to do multiple things, then you need to come up with a strategy for each platform that works for what you need to do. So if you're looking to get the word out, as I said, I think Facebook and Twitter are good for those kinds of tools and also can be powerful fundraising tools. If you're looking to establish yourself as an organization or a person who has expertise, then you want to have value. And to have value, you have to have content. So that means you need to develop content that you think is going to be valuable. And when I say build content, I mean original content. A lot of people spend a lot of time retweeting other people's content, which is okay if you have a reputation, and as a person who's expert in the field, people will look at what you've retweeted. But it's also important that you're guiding them and leading them to real content that only you can deliver. And once you do that, you start getting followers and people interested. So I guess those are some of the things. I think the other thing that you have to be prepared for is that once you're in the social media space, you become transparent to your audience, whoever your audience is. And Don Tapscott has a great quote. He says, if you're going to be naked, you might as well be buff. And what he means by that is you have to make sure that as an organization, if you're going to venture into a space where people can communicate in a two-way way with you through all of these tools, that you have to be responsive to those people, and you have to be aware that they might criticize your activities, and you have to have answers for them, and you have to know that your organization is airtight and able to cope and answer any kinds of queries that may come up.
So you're out there, you're visible to everyone, so be careful and sort of, I was wondering if you had any examples of cases where people don't use social media in the right way, or sort of the bad case scenario of what not to do. I think there's all kinds of examples, but what I think they represent are just people not being responsive. So, for example, Apple computers, always thought of as a very sort of somewhat more progressive company than, say, Microsoft. However, Greenpeace identified that they were building computers that had all kinds of parts that were highly toxic, and they started suggesting all kinds of replacement products that Apple could use in order to green their computers. And they started a whole campaign called Green My Apple. And they overtook Apple's brand. They put Apple in a tough position by exposing their non-sustainable practices. And Apple didn't really respond. It took them a little bit of time, but when they did respond, they did it well. But what I was going to say is not responding. I think there's all kinds of examples of that in the social media space. Companies are by their nature a little bit afraid of venturing out into this space because once they do, the floodgates are open. And there's all kinds of examples of companies not being responsive or deleting comments from users on their Facebook page. I think the most important lesson that all of those examples show us is
be open, be transparent, and be collaborative. Because if you aren't, you're really not going to survive in this new world that we're living in. Information is readily available. People can find out just about anything, anywhere, anytime. And so you have to be ready for that, and you have to be prepared to make sure that you have policies and guidelines for yourself or for your staff or for your organization around how you're going to use social media.
We want to encourage people to send in their questions. We have a specific question from Lena Harper, and she says, I have a general question about creating bilingual content for Twitter and Facebook. How do we communicate in both official languages without clogging the feeds and annoying people? So I'm wondering, Dorothy, if you like to comment on that.
You know what? I'm going to tell you that I don't really have a very good sort of strategy for that. I think that you just have to be, all I could say is that I think you have to be very culturally sensitive, that you can't just start translating everything that you're doing in English to French. I mean, I think that's fairly obvious. I think you have to think of these as distinct audiences and distinct pots of content and make sure that you don't think of it as a version, either the French having an English version or the English having a French version. I think that's one of the biggest problems we see online, especially with a lot of websites by national organizations that are required to have sort of two official languages. I think that's the problem. And when you talk about the Twitter feed and the Facebook page, I think in some ways what's interesting about Facebook is sometimes the blending of content. So the question is, do you want to have an English-facing page that blends French content, or do you want to have a French-facing page that blends English content based on the users? So maybe if you have a follow-up question, maybe I haven't answered exactly what you're looking for, but just let me know.
That's actually one of the challenges for Girls Action. We are a bilingual organization, and we do actually produce content in both English and French, and it's something that we do. We have to basically address on a daily basis, and we do post things in both languages, but not necessarily in a systematic way, because as Lena pointed out, it can get very cumbersome for people to read every single thing in both languages. And back to just to reinforce your point about responsiveness, precisely because if people start giving comments, you want to be able to be responsive, and if you're just doing it on a sort of a systematic translation basis, you're not necessarily going to be able to.
You're going to lose your audience, right? And there's nothing worse than that.
Cecilia Vargas. Oh, sorry, Dorothy. We have another question from Cecilia, and she would like to know: is there a tool to search for blogs by topic and number of participants or readers?
Yes, there are. Now the thing is, it's a tool that I use on my iPad. It's called Flip, and it tends to have the sort of a list of all the blogs and sort of the biggest users. But you know what I can do is, do we have a way to do follow-up resources back to the participants? Because I could send links to those resources that I use. I didn't put it in my links at the end of the resource page, but I could.
Yes.
I can do that. So I'm happy to share with you the links that I use and some of the software tools that I use to find those things. There's also a wonderful, although some people are not very happy about it, there's a tool for Twitter that actually gives you not only just the size of the Twitter following, but the value of that Twitter feed in terms of its trustworthiness, and that's another link I can send you. So you can search any organization and see a value attached to that particular Twitter user, and so it helps you to sort of weed out things that are not maybe as important or as trusted a source as maybe you'd want to follow.
The next question is from Isha, and she says, my work is in the intersections of live improvisation and performance in education, therapy, and social movements, and I'm wondering about the value of using social media to archive, share, and continue the movements that begin in person. Do you have any ideas?
I think that's a great idea. I mean, this is, the social web is one of the best tools for archiving material. The thing that I might suggest is you might think about starting a wiki. Now, a wiki wasn't something I put in my presentation, but wikis are very powerful tools to crowdsource information, whether it's video or research documents or finding a solution to a problem. Wikis are now being used by the Ontario government. They just developed their social innovation policy, and they've opened up to the entire province the idea that people could interact with that policy, and I think we're going to see more of that in government. The arts, there's probably some very good examples of people doing archiving and creating wikis around content like that. I know that there's a theater group, Fujian Theater, a Chinese theater group, that's using technology to archive a lot of plays that are being written about sort of the Asian Canadian experience. So I think it could be a wonderful tool for you.
There are a couple of people that I just want to reinforce that this PowerPoint presentation and the recording will be available after the fact, and I will be sending a link to everyone. So, and Wendy wanted to know the name of the iPad application that you mentioned earlier.
Maybe called Flip. It's called Flip.
Flipboard.
Flipboard. Flipboard. It's a fantastic tool, and the thing about the Flipboard is that when you go into Flipboard, they have all these categories, and once you go to the category, you can choose what they've done is they've taken what they think are the best blogs or the best feeds from Twitter in a category, and it presents it to you like a magazine. It's a truly astonishing little piece of technology, and then what you can do is you can add any blogs that you're interested into the pack, and it's just a fantastic, quick way, a very visual way as well. And you know when you go to Twitter, there's like a link. So you go to Twitter, you see a Twitter feed, then you have to go to the link, and then it goes to the site. The Flip technology integrates all of it together, so you don't actually ever leave your Flip. You're just there, you read the article, and it just appears as the whole article, and the link is already embedded right into the program, so it's really exciting. I also have 3 questions that I think were sent to me here. One, is there a hashtag being used for this webinar? I don't know. We do have a hashtag. Do we have a hashtag?
Our Twitter person would be doing that. I actually don't. There is, but I don't know what it is.
Okay, well, that was the first question. The other one was from Lisa saying, you're struggling to find the difference between using Facebook and Twitter as a not-for-profit. It seems all my posts would essentially be the same. Yes. Okay, so I think this is a really great question. I think the most important thing is you have to remember there are different audiences. So what I would say about Facebook is I think Facebook is the one that you use. You can use it for everything you're doing. You can use it for announcing events. You can reach out to stakeholders. It's a great way to spread the message with all the friends of the friends of the friends that you have online. Twitter, I think right now, is a powerful tool to do one of 2 things: to drive people to your website, to drive people to a blog or piece of content, or you can even use your Twitter to drive to a posting on your Facebook. So Twitter is just this very powerful, short piece that links to other things, whereas Facebook is more of a conversation that goes on, that's public, where everybody can see that conversation in one place. So I think a lot of it just depends on what it is you want to do, and as I said, I think it depends on whether you're using it to promote, to get the word out. Twitter's been used incredibly successfully to do sort of flash mob kinds of fundraisers to raise money. The Daily Food Bank here in Toronto received 1 million tons of food when 2 people in downtown Toronto started Twittering that they should donate food because they found out that the food bank didn't have enough food that winter over Christmas. And within 3 days, over Twitter, they had created a party. They'd raised $50,000 in cash and 1 million tons of food or something. It was absolutely incredible. And through Twitter, people gave a free space for them. It's quite an amazing tool. To do something very quickly and to mobilize a lot of people, Twitter can be very powerful.
You know what, for people who might not be that familiar with Twitter, we do have a question about what is a hashtag. Do you want to just briefly?
Oh, what is a hashtag? Well, basically, the idea of Twitter is if you go into Twitter, you'll see a whole bunch of sort of trends along the right-hand side of the page with hashtags. And hashtags are like categories. So in a newspaper, you have arts and leisure, you have, the sports section, you have the business section. The hashtag helps people to find content. So if you're looking for everything on corporate social responsibility, you type in hashtag CSR, and all of the Twitter feeds that are related to CSR that have been tagged with that hashtag will come up. So it's like a way of sorting information. It's a way of filtering information. And what organizations will do, if you go to an event, they'll create a hashtag for that event, and so that when anyone's looking for information about that event, they can track just that hashtag. And say, for example, you're standing in line waiting to have your book signed by Bill Clinton at Indigo. So they had a hashtag for that, and people who were standing in line were telling you how long it was to wait, and people are communicating. So it can be a way of keeping up to date with something very, very up to the moment, or it can be something that's more about trends, trends of content or segments of content. So it's a hierarchy of filtering, basically. That's what a hashtag is. Another question I was just sent was, what about social media and advocacy? Can you share some experiences for that use? I guess the quick answer would be, if you go to the video section in the resources piece that I put together on Get Involved, I have 8-part series that you saw the first episode of. There's 7 more. The focus of the series is really on how social media is being used by all kinds of organizations. So we have it split into politics, how organizations are using it to raise money. We have how corporate environments are using it to work with advocacy groups. There's all kinds of different content there and lots of good case studies. And I have 3 case studies that I put links to, so I'd suggest you take a look at that. I think the biggest example of social media and advocacy right now is, the advocates for democracy in North Africa. I mean, it's changing the face of politics right now. So I would say that, we're seeing it all around us. But in terms of specific case studies, 2 things. Check out the resources link. And the other thing is, if you want to, Jennifer, invite me on LinkedIn or Facebook, and we can communicate that way. And I can send you some links to some other sort of groups that I belong to that might help you sort of on your way and be a great sort of forum for you to exchange ideas with a whole bunch of people who are experts in the space.
Related to that theme, Nisha had a comment. Something I find really interesting is the Groupon phenomenon and the new Google Wallet being launched on September 1st, which harnesses group buying power for just about anything and everything. So in addition to raising money, social media can change the market and how we participate in it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think, in the episode that I didn't show, it's about how the volume is now being controlled in the marketplace by users. In other words, the consumer now has an incredibly powerful role in shaping product
development, the perception of companies, and the perception of not-for-profits or the ability for not-for-profits to raise money. I mean, it's crazy. I would say that individuals now have more power than ever before if they're engaged in this space in a way that is authentic. And I think the authentic part of the message for me is it raises questions around what I would call netiquette. In social media, people used to have names when they would communicate with each other, like Top Hat 406 and Ping Pong 908. Today, in the social media space, people are who they are. People are using their real names, and they're doing that because transparency is increasingly important. So you know that when, Dorothy Engelman says she liked this, you know that whatever I liked, you know who I am, and you know that I'm being transparent about what I care about and what I like. And that's becoming this is becoming more and more prevalent, this idea that on the net you have to say who you are, be who you are, and be authentic. And if you're not authentic, you're going to get called out. You're going to get found out.
On just going back a little bit to the question of mobilizations, we had a webinar last week actually about social justice and mobilizing people for social justice, and Judy Rebeck was the presenter in the webinar, and one of her points that has been something that other people have mentioned as well is how, in a way, the social media gives the perception that it is a spontaneous movement. They're visible movements. What's happening? You mentioned North Africa. It's being broadcast on television. It's being broadcast in different social media channels. It almost appears like all of a sudden people have woken up. But her point was, well, you know what, this is actually not a spontaneous movement. People have been organizing for years to make this happen. There's just seems to be a critical mass at this moment in time, and it's strategic. The reason that it's happening now is strategic. So I was wondering if you wanted to comment on that.
Well, I mean, it kind of ties back in with what I said in my presentation, which is this is not new. People communicate with each other, people share ideas, people mobilize, people are political, people outreach to one another, people collaborate, people do all of these things. But the tool of social media means that one piece of communication can amplify and ripple out and touch millions of people instantly. On LinkedIn, I'm not a very big LinkedIn user, but I have maybe 300 contacts on LinkedIn. Those 300 contacts represent 3.5 million people within 2 steps of everyone I know. 3 million people, 300 contacts. That's the power of social media. It's the ability to amplify your message and do it without the expense of fundraisers on the phone potentially, or without the expense of doing direct mail and a lot of brochureware. So I think that's why we've seen activists take up the space and use the space, because they have to innovate. They have to find ways of doing things in an effective, cost-effective way.
Thanks for that, Dorothy. We have another clarification question. Cecilia noticed the word wellspring programs on one of your slides, and she was wondering if you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, that was because this presentation is a version of a presentation I did for Wellspring, and that's a typo. It was Wellspring is an organization that I work with, and I've just finished doing a social media strategy for them. I'm on their communications committee. I run their communications committee, and I'm also on their board of directors. And it's been a very interesting experience trying to take an organization that has relied on direct mail to the point where they don't even communicate with their stakeholders by email, which to me just, I get it, because the kind of service that they're providing is very sensitive and it's a very empathetic environment. But, they were feeling the pressures of needing to be in the space and also wanting to groundbreak in the space as a leader in supportive care services. They've developed a lot of tools and technology and training and education that they want to start sharing as best practices. And the way to do that is to raise their profile. And rather than, doing it the traditional way, they're trying to use social media channels to do that. So we've just launched, literally 3 weeks ago, their Twitter feed and their Facebook page, and they just relaunched their website. So that was what that was referring to. I did, do these social media packs, and I try to customize them to the audience, but that's a typo.
Well, thank you, Dorothy, and thanks to everyone who participated in today's session. I'm conscious of the time and that people might be on their lunch hours, and so I wanted to spend the last few minutes just wrapping up and say to those who sent in their questions, and when I am going to be sending a link to the audio recording that will include the PowerPoint as well, so you will have in your hands the different resource links that Dorothy included in her slides. I do also want to encourage you, once you get off the webinar conference, I wanted to let you know that a pop-up survey will appear on your screen, and if you could just take a couple of minutes to fill that out, that would be really helpful in terms of receiving your feedback and helping us improve the webinar series as they go along, or make changes as necessary. And so I do want to encourage you to do that. And I also wanted to take the last minute to just mention a little bit more about the latest Spark campaign. Again, this webinar series is being presented as part of that series as part of that campaign. And if you want to find out more about it, please do feel free to check out the Girls Action website and click on Light a Spark, and there you will have more information about other webinars coming up. You could also do something which we're calling Honor Your Spark, so honor a woman that you find is inspiring in your life, and you could also help spread the word about the campaign by liking our Facebook page, applying some of the things we've been talking about today. And if you do have a moment, also encourage you to check out our PSA videos, and the link for those also appears on your screen right now. It's the YouTube channel, the Light a Spark campaign, under in the YouTube, on our YouTube channel. And also feel free to email me if you have any questions. So thank you once again to Dorothy and for taking the time to be with us today, and also thank you so much to everyone who participated. And you can also send an email directly to Dorothy if you have any specific questions for her as well, and her email address is de@qmediasolutions.
I just realized I sent a chat with my email wrong. I apologize. Thank you. I'll just send it to everybody, my email address right now. My apologies. And I wanted to say, just the one last thing was Flip. You might find it under Flipboard, but it's Flipboard, Your Social Magazine is what it's called, and it's just fantastic. It's just really great. So I've just sent my email to everybody. Please, anyone has any questions, if there's anything I can do to help you, in any way, just let me know.
And that's what I was going to ask you, Dorothy, if you had anything that you wanted to end off with, but I think you just did. So thank you again, and let's keep in touch.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. Thank you.